Wow, so the Eagles just improved to 2-1 in about the weirdest way possible, as a complete 180 turnaround from the defense led to Jalen Carter and the Birds completely dominating the red-hot Saints offense, and it even had Nick Sirianni tearing up, although things weren't all positive for the head coach, as some particularly bad in-game decisions have Eagles fans livid, and many have even called for his job. But what has Eagles fans even more pissed is what happened to DeVonta Smith, as not only did the Saints take him out of the game with a dirty hit, but it seems like a Saints defender may have actually spit on the injured star while he was down. But this lit a fire under Saquon Barkley, who helped save the Eagles offense along with Goedert, who had a career day. And despite some awful turnovers, Jalen Hurts came through when it mattered most once again. So we're going to talk about all that and everything else from the Eagles' ugly thriller win over the Saints starting right now. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Philly Fan 21 channel. If you're new, I'm Evan and I cover all things Philadelphia Eagles. And honestly, I feel lucky to just still be alive and mostly well after that game, because that has got to be one of the most stressful and aggravating games I've watched as an Eagles fan. And that's saying something. Yet they somehow pulled out the win, and I honestly think this is probably the weirdest Eagles game I've ever watched, because it's like, I don't know how they won this game, yet with the way the game went, they should have easily won it, but yet I also feel like they didn't deserve to win it, but they did. So it was definitely an interesting one, to say the least. Now, the game started off with the Eagles defense out on the field facing a Saints offense that came in as probably the best offense in the league, and all week we had talked about how much the Eagles defense, and specifically the defensive line, had struggled to rush the passer and stop the run. But on this first drive, the Birds defense looked much better as they got a few stops against the run, and Jalen Carter batted down a third down pass in the red zone to force the Saints field goal. And then the defense was right back out in the field after the offense went 3 and out, but they forced a 3 and out of their own as Jordan Davis made his presence felt by sacking Derek Carr and putting the Saints behind the sticks. So it was certainly a great start for Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and the Eagles defense. And Carter and Davis specifically really carried the positive momentum they built up in the beginning of the game throughout the rest of it, as both of these two had really awesome performances overall. Jordan Davis was much more of a factor and a presence in stopping the run game, and the numbers were pretty good too, as he put up 4 tackles along with the sack, a tackle for loss, and a QB hit. Meanwhile, Jalen Carter had what I would consider just a flat-out dominant performance, as even though he didn't register a sack in this one, it seemed like he came up big whenever the Eagles needed him, and he made several crucial plays throughout the course of the game in key situations. And overall, Carter finished with 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defended, and 1 QB hit, along with being the highest graded Eagle in the entire game. So he was certainly doing a little bit of everything in this game, and I think both him and Davis deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the way that they played, especially with how they played last week and just all the criticism that followed that, because they certainly responded very, very well this week. And Nick Sirianni actually talked specifically about how Carter and Davis responded after the game, and he praised them in the defense while also getting a little bit emotional.
I mean, the defense played unbelievable. I mean, we played on that's a good offensive line. We played on their side of the line of scrimmage an awful lot. Jalen Carter played his butt off. Jordan Davis played his butt off when everybody has been doubting them all week. Well, what are we doing? Why are we drafting these guys? I've heard it all. I've heard everything. I try not to listen, but I got to come talk to the media 5 times a week, so you hear it all. And they responded because they didn't care about what anybody thought of them. And then when they weren't riding with them when we were losing, they ain't going to ride with us when we win. And so we heard it all. We heard everything, and they heard it, and they responded. And all you can do is control yourself. You're always going to have people saying different things about you. And they went out there, and they worked their ass off. I'm going to get emotional. They worked their ass off all week. Vic Fangio put them in a great spot all week. Clint Hurt put them in a great spot all week with the way he drilled them and the way he was on all week. And they went out and responded, and they did it.
You definitely got to love the response from Carter and Davis and really the whole defense this week, because all week long, all the talk and the criticism was about the defense's struggles against the run and rushing the passer, but this week, they worked so hard and they had quite the bounce-back effort in this game, as this Eagles defense just really dominated what was probably the best offense in the league coming into the game, as they held the Saints to just 210 total yards of offense and 12 points, and they were much better rushing the passer, getting consistent pressure on Derek Carr and making life harder for him, while holding him to just 142 passing yards, and against the run, which was the main concern coming into the game, they were just a completely different team, really. I mean, as opposed to last week, the Eagles were the ones to consistently set the edge along the defensive line, while the linebackers weren't getting taken out by the cut blocks anymore, and they were making plays on the ball carrier. And overall, they held the Saints to just 89 rush yards and only 3.1 yards per carry, which is just a crazy turnaround. So overall, that was just an unbelievable performance and turnaround by the defense, and they deserve a ton of credit for it, especially since they were picking up the slack for the offense's struggles for most of the entire game. And the weird thing about about the offense's issues in this game was that all their problems were self-inflicted. I mean, it's not like the Eagles couldn't move the ball, as they did that pretty consistently throughout the entire contest on a really good Saints defense. It's just that they kept screwing themselves over. I mean, take their second drive of the game, for example, where the Birds managed to get all the way down to the Saints' 13-yard line, but then Jalen Hurts just made a big mistake and turned the ball over as he was intercepted by safety Tyrann Mathieu on a throw to DeVonta Smith in the end zone, on honestly what I think was a pretty weird call, as I feel like Dallas Goedert would have probably been better suited to be put in this position rather than Smitty, but nonetheless, Mathieu had it covered well, and he made a great play to get the interception, while for Jalen Hurts, it was just another costly turnover in a crucial spot, as this pick just cost the team points. But the turnover issues didn't stop there for Hurts in the offense, as on their next possession, they were moving once again before they came up on a play where Hurts rolled to his left and was stripped by Carl Granderson, and the Saints ended up recovering the fumble, making that another Hurts turnover that more than likely cost the Birds points. And at this point, I was pissed, because you guys know that I defend Jalen Hurts more than anybody, but these two turnovers were just unacceptable, and they were massive blown opportunities for the Eagles offense. But what's crazy is that those weren't the worst missed opportunities that the Eagles offense had, as Nick Sirianni made a few horrible decisions that ended up costing the Eagles points in this game, and that's only added fuel to the fire of people calling for Nick Sirianni to be fired. So we're going to talk about that and so much more in just a minute, but real quick, I do want to say, if you are enjoying this video and don't want to miss any other Eagles coverage or content coming throughout this entire season, then make sure you subscribe, and also really importantly, turn on notifications so you're notified instantly when one of these videos is uploaded. I think that's a win-win for the both of us, because not only do I get more people consistently watching these videos, but you guys don't miss any more other Eagles content just like this. So again, subscribe, turn on notifications, and also drop a like. Let's see if we can hit 1,000 likes on this video. And now with all that being said, let's get back into the video. So on the Eagles' next offensive possession, after the Jalen Hurts fumble, they started on their own 7-yard line, and they had less than 4 minutes to go in the half to get some points, and they started moving, with big plays going to DeVonta Smith, Jalen Hurts on the ground running the ball, and Dallas Goedert, who racked up 7 catches in the first half, which was pretty awesome after he hadn't really been a big part of the offense at all through the first 2 weeks. But they came to a situation where they were stopped in a 4th and 1 from the Saints' 15 with 1 timeout left. So in this situation, they could either just take the points and tie the game, as mind you, they were only down 3-0 at this point, or they could go for it, and best case scenario, if they picked it up, they would take one shot to the end zone and then score a touchdown. But if they didn't score the touchdown, then they would just end up kicking 3 points anyways. And of course, you also risk not picking up the first down and getting no points at all. So it seemed like probably the smartest thing to do in that situation would be kick the field goal and just guarantee yourselves points. But Nick Sirianni stuck with his typical strategy for going for it on 4th and 1, and they didn't get it, as they attempted a fake brotherly shove reverse play where they were stopped short. So in hindsight, this just wasn't the best decision by Sirianni to go for it here, as it just flat out cost the Eagles points when they had a guaranteed 3 right there. And what makes it worse is that Nick made it clear after the game that he was the one who called this play, not offensive coordinator Kellen Moore.
And just so anyone's wondering, Kellen on that 4th and 1 at the end of the half, I called that, not Kellen. So I called that play at the end of the half. Kellen did not. I called it.
Why?
That's what I thought was best for the football team in that particular case. That was my decision. I did it. It didn't work, and we'll get better. I'll get better from it. That's a play I thought was working in the best situation in that particular case, and it didn't work. And that's not on Kellen. That's not on the players. I put them in a bad spot, and I made that call. Come on, man. Yeah.
I mean, at least he made sure to take accountability for his poor decision, but this certainly was not the best look for Sirianni, who already has taken a ton of criticism recently and is obviously in hot water already. But the crazy thing is, I mean, that wasn't even his worst decision of the game, as the Eagles got the ball to start the second half, and they found themselves in Saints territory once again after Saquon Barkley got going, and they came up on a 4th and 3 at the Saints' 34-yard line, still down 3-0, so the only logical thing to do in this situation here is to just kick the field goal. But that's not what Nick Sirianni opted for, as the Birds' offense went back out on the field, much to the chagrin of Eagles fans in the stadium, and they went for it again, and Jalen Hurts was sacked on the play. And at this point, I mean, I was yelling at my TV because there is literally no reason why he shouldn't have just kicked the field goal and tied the game. I mean, that decision just made absolutely no sense to go for it there. And for a lot of Eagles fans, I mean, I think if they hadn't gotten there already, this may have been their last straw with Nick. I mean, everyone seems to want this guy fired at this point, and I completely get it, and I'm asking questions too. Like, I've always been someone that tries to stay positive and give him a fair shot, and I don't ever want to overreact to anything too quickly, but I think it's completely fair to question how much he's helping this team in contrast to how much he's hurting this team. I mean, mean, on one hand, the players seemingly love Nick and are all behind him, and he also seems to have built a nice culture of togetherness and accountability and all that good stuff, but just these decisions that he made and many decisions he's been making for a while now have hurt the Eagles, and on Sunday, it cost them points in a very close game, and it very well could have cost them the game. So personally, I mean, I don't think the Eagles are going to fire Nick Sirianni mid-season unless they just collapse again and they start losing a ton of games, but I'm curious to know where you guys are at. So do you want Sirianni fired at this point in time or not? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, a bit later, the Eagles defense gave life to the offense once again after they stopped the Saints on a 3rd and 1 and then a 4th and 1 on back-to-back run plays in what was just a really impressive and awesome stand by them. And then the offense got the ball back to start the 4th quarter with yet another chance to take the lead. Unfortunately, though, 3 plays into the drive, the Saints pulled probably one of the dirtiest things I think I've ever seen in a football game, as DeVonta Smith caught a pass and was quickly hit by a defender who stopped forward progress. And then 2 seconds later, after forward progress was already clearly stopped, another defender, Christian Boyd, who is a defensive tackle and probably around 300 freaking pounds, came flying in at full speed and just absolutely crunched DeVonta Smith, who's like probably a $175, while also hitting him in the back of the head. And I mean, this hit was bad because Smitty's helmet came off and he was not moving, so I was definitely scared, and I'll admit, I was also praying for him as we went to commercial break because I thought this injury was actually going to be pretty serious. Luckily though, when they came back, this dude Smitty was walking off the field under his own power, and when he sat up, he had this look on his face. So if that doesn't show you just how tough DeVonta Smith is, I don't know what will, but this play still knocked him out of the game as he was then evaluated for a concussion and he missed the rest of the contest. And man, there's just no way you can convince me that this play isn't dirty and it's not a penalty of some sort, whether helmet to helmet or a hit on a defenseless player or something. And CJ Gardner-Johnson certainly wasn't a fan of it, as he said this after the game.
Man, that's the dirtiest I ever saw in football, bro. Y'all obviously saw forward progression was stopped. I mean, for them to take a cheap shot on one of our key players, it goes to show you what type of team that is. They're front runners.
Which one are you talking about?
Man, you know what hit that was, man.
Oh, there's the pending one too.
Man, either way it go, man. That's not. They ain't got nowhere for football. Y'all always talk about CD this, but let's talk about how they playing dirty on their side. But at the end of the day, the league will handle it. They ain't got nothing to do besides we got the dub and keep it pushing.
Safe to say CD was pissed, and rightfully so, and also it was just good to see him stick up for his guy like that and also call the Saints out for just playing dirty. But the crazy thing is, it actually gets even worse, as this dude named Peyton Turner, who's a defensive end, straight up just like dove on top of DeVonta Smith when he was already down and possibly out, which I don't know if he was trying to go after the ball, but the ball was not even anywhere close to Smith at that point, so I don't know why he did that. And then when he stood up, it actually looks like he turned and then spit right on DeVonta, which if he did, I mean, that's just absolutely disgusting and literally vile. Like, obviously you don't spit on somebody. Like, that's just over the line disrespectful and gross. Now, Turner has denied these claims on social media, but the video doesn't look good. I mean, it's right there. You can see the spit fly out of his mouth in the direction of DeVonta. Now, whether it actually landed on him or not could be up for debate, but still, it just looked like he intentionally spit in his direction. So all I really got to say is this is actually disgusting, and I think the league definitely needs to look into this because I definitely do think that was a dirty hit, and also spitting on someone or even in someone's direction is just disgusting and should not be tolerated. But at least it ignited a fire in the guys, and specifically Saquon Barkley, as on the very next play after Smitty exited, the offensive line, which had backups Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson playing, by the way, due to injuries, and shout out to them because they were great in this game, but all the guys threw some great blocks and created a big hole which Saquon flew through, and he turned on the Jets as he took it 65 yards to the end zone, giving the Eagles their first points and first lead of the game in the 4th quarter. And this was really just an all-around awesome play that was executed well by everybody, and a great job by Barkley to take it all the way to the house. And after the game, Saquon talked about the play, and he confirmed that him and the rest of the team really rallied behind Smitty after the injury.
Yeah, the emotions, definitely. When you see that, anybody, when you see that, it sucks and it hurts, but especially Smitty, the way he comes to work, the way he prepares, and how much he means to this team. It was a tough loss. It was tough to see him down like that in that moment. We all made sure we said a prayer for him, both sides, and like I said, for us, the thing we did right after that, we locked in and we said, come on, trust each other and let's get this done for Smitty. And sometimes it just works like that.
It's just awesome to hear how much Smitty means to the guys in the locker room, and it was also awesome to see Barkley and the guys respond after that really unfortunate play. But the game was far from over at that point, as the Saints went down and got a field goal and made it a 7-6 game, and then on the Eagles' next possession, they were put in another interesting situation as they came up on a 4th and 11 from the Saints' 42-yard line, and they had to choose between kicking a 60-yard field goal, which has risk, or punting it and pinning the Saints deep but getting no points. So Nick Sirianni played it aggressive once again by opting for the field goal, and Jake missed it, so the Saints were then set up in great field position down by just 1 after another somewhat questionable decision by Nick Sirianni, and New Orleans capitalized as they went down and scored a touchdown on a throw to Chris Olave, who had badly beaten CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, the Saints did go for 2 on the next play, and Zach Bond and the Eagles defense came up with a stop, so the Eagles offense then got the ball back down 5 points with 1:58 left, and with no A.J. Brown, no DeVonta Smith, no Britton Covey, no Lane Johnson, and no Mekhi Becton due to various injuries, so it was certainly going to be a challenge for Jalen to lead the Birds to victory in this situation. And a couple plays later, the Eagles found themselves in a 3rd and 16 with little hope, but then we got arguably the play of the game in which Jalen hit Dallas Goedert on an underneath crossing route, and he then ran for a massive 61-yard gain to set the Eagles up at 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. And this play was just awesome for multiple reasons. One, because it capped off a career day for Goedert, who had a career high in catches and yards, as he went for 10 catches and 170 yards on the day, but it was also a great job by Jahan Dotson to get his man to run interference and spring Goedert wide open. And also, Jalen Hurts apparently checked to this play at the line of scrimmage, and Dallas Goedert broke that down after the game.
Yeah, we had a zone play, and if they were man, we were going to alert it, and he was able to see it, and we got alerted to the play that we wanted, and worked out great.
Just huge shout out to Jalen for reading the defense and making this check that was just absolutely crucial in the game's final outcome, and also massive shout out to Dallas Goedert for having the game of his life and being one of the guys that saved the Eagles offense. And another one of those guys is Saquon Barkley, who then got the handoff on 1st and goal and took it in for the score, giving the Eagles back the lead. And he also then got the handoff in the 2-point conversion, and he picked that up as well, giving the Eagles the 3-point lead with a minute to go. So huge credit to Saquon for his big day, huge credit to Goedert for his career day, and also huge credit to Jalen Hurts for leading what ended up being the game-winning drive. And I mean, in regards to Jalen's performance specifically, it's really interesting because if you just take out those 2 bad turnovers he had in the first half, he had a pretty phenomenal game. I mean, he threw for over 300 yards and he completed 76% of his passes while down A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, and Mekhi Becton for most of the game, and DeVonta Smith at the end. And of course, he engineered the game-winning drive, so I want to praise him for his performance, but those 2 turnovers were just bad and super costly, and he just can't continue to turn the ball over like that if the Eagles want to get to where they want to go. So he's just got to clean them up, plain and simple, and he knows that. But again, aside from those 2 plays, he was pretty awesome in this game. And someone else who was great was the safety Reed Blankenship, as he was the 2nd highest graded player on the team, and he ended the game by jumping a Derek Carr pass down the field and picking him off for his 2nd interception of the year. So with that, the Eagles won by a score of 15-12, and they moved to 2-1, and about as ugly as a win as they could have got. Jalen Carter was then fired up on the sidelines after the win was secured, just talking his trash, which was cool to see. And also, shout out to Reed Blankenship, who earned CJ Gardner-Johnson and Jalen Carter's chains after the game. And he, along with Nick Sirianni, spoke to the team in the locker room after the win, and it was pretty awesome.
Guys, that's a complete team win. When one phase isn't working, the other one has the other one's back. I'm so proud of you. That's how you respond. That's how you respond. That's a response. Nobody had any doubt when we were coming here. The defense,
I love y'all boys, man. Love the hell out of y'all. We came in here, we fucking dominated, bro. I want to ride and die with this team. Yes, sir. Ride and die. Yes, sir. We got each other's back. Hurry up, bro.
all we need is this people in this room, and that's it.
Safe to say, the vibes are high, and this is just one of those wins that brings the team closer together. That being said, though, we can't ignore the concerns either. I mean, the Eagles won in spite of some horrible coaching decisions by Nick Sirianni, some horrible turnovers by Jalen Hurts, and just a bunch of different self-inflicted wounds that they just can't keep happening. Plus, the Eagles also had a ton of players go down with injuries in this game, so that's definitely horrible, but I mean, I guess a win is a win, and there were plenty of good things in this game too, highlighted by the defense's dominant effort, so hopefully they can keep that up. And my final takeaway is this: I mean, the Eagles, if healthy, can make a deep playoff run and even win the Super Bowl, but Jalen Hurts has to clean up the turnovers, Nick Sirianni has to be smarter in his decision-making, and the defense has to keep up the strong play. Much easier said than done, I know that, but I do think it's possible. But that being said, I want to know your guys' thoughts. What did you think of the Eagles' ugly yet thrilling win over the Saints in Week 3? Give me all your thoughts down in the comments below, and also while you're at it, make sure you subscribe, and again, also really importantly, turn on notifications so you're notified instantly when one of these videos is uploaded. Again, you're not going to want to miss any of the Eagles content I got coming on this channel throughout the entire season, so So again, subscribe and also drop a like because that really does help me out a ton. Again, let's see if we can hit 1,000 likes on this video. And if you want to watch another video, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.